Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducksy Gaming, and what might be the last episode in the Mayhem series. I've really pushed this character to where I can on the gear that I've got, and to really go further and boss, I'm quite a bit short in terms of DPS, especially in terms of the mods. Now the footage you saw before, some of that was badly geared. It was done on like the first couple of maps in the session, and then some of it was a bit better towards the end where I got in power charges and stuff like that. So the Katarina fight was really early geared. I didn't have lethal pride, power charges, stuff like that, so I struggled to get freeze. But generally, I can just about freeze Guardians and Conquerors, but sometimes if there's horrible things on the map, I need to do a glove swap. I need to make sure my totems are up and then burst. So there is still lots of upgrades that will be needed to get this character to actually go and boss. The other reason I'm not sure I want to take it to bosses is this build revolves around keeping your frenzy charges up, because you get tons of extra damage from the Ascendancy and from Ice Bite. And fights like Cirrus, for example, where he's permanently disappearing, I think that would be a really, really tough fight to do and would take a very, very long time. Equally with other bosses as well, like Maven, again, she teleports all over the place. There's phases, there's the memory game. So if frenzy charges fall off, it's really, really difficult to boss with this build. But it is a mapping build, and that's what it was designed for, and it fits the build absolutely perfectly at the moment. So even with nothing up and the reduced damage taken, I can still freeze map bosses fairly easily, and I'm not having too many issues freezing everything in the map. Overall, it's actually been a really good experience. It's helped me understand a bit better how this build would cope at League Start if nothing changes in terms of the gear and the setup. And I think in trade, the gear I've got is nothing special whatsoever. I've crafted it all myself. Nothing was really that difficult to do or would be expensive on trade. So we'll go through the character, and then we'll go through kind of the last day, what I completed, what I decided to do, and then what my plans are going forward if I stay on the character. So we'll start with the gear, because there's been quite a few changes. So I had these southbound gloves dropped a long time ago. Like I think I dropped these possibly even during leveling. And they're quite a nice glove to have when you need that extra burst damage, but you do obviously have to make sure you can get enemies to a state of being frozen, otherwise you can't kill them. They're basically just ones I swap in for bosses, because I like having +1 strike for mapping. So in a lot of the footage that you saw where I might go and take on a Guardian or a Conqueror, I've got this glove swap with the same gems, which is just a cast on death portal in each pair of gloves, and I literally just swap them, and then that's it. We'll go and take on the boss because it's a nice decent chunk of damage. So we'll go through the gear in its entirety rather than just what I've upgraded, just in case, you know, people have forgotten or this is the first time you tune it in. So I run the Heat Shiver helmet that I had to craft using one of the corrupted currencies. I can't remember what it's called, Mythic Orb, I think. So I went to farm leather hoods and basically used a Mythic Orb on a corrupted leather hood, and it turned into Heat Shiver. I farmed uniques for ages. I had like 3 quad tabs full of uniques and didn't get this. So that was like a last resort to go and do it. The claw I've had for a long time. I really, really was hoping I'd get a fractured base drop, but I didn't. If you don't, it's very, very difficult to craft a good claw. You basically have to spam cold essences until you get a second damage mod and either attack speed or crit and craft the missing link. Ideally, you want to hit everything so you can then craft elemental penetration, because it's a massive DPS boost. That just didn't happen for me. I have got 4 divines now, so I could maybe metacraft a claw, but it wouldn't end up being much better than this, so it's kind of pointless doing it. The chest piece is pretty nice. I've had quite a few 6 links drops. I think I've had 5 uncorrupted 6 links drop. This was the first one. I just can't be bothered to recraft and recolor chest pieces, and this has got a white socket in case I want to do any sort of gem swap. I've rolled Fortify and Non-Curse auras from skills, and then it's just life and resistances. I want the Gravicious craft on here, but still not had him. He is available again on my board. I think there's a thing where he's just hiding body armors from me because he just isn't dropping them. So I've given up trying to get that. We'll just go with the max life. So the amulet was just essence crafted. It was either crit multi essences or fire damage to attack essences. I forget. I think it was the attack ones. And this rolled really nicely. It's not ideal, but it actually works really well. It's got a decent chunk of damage. Divine Judgment on here because it's nice and cheap. And I'm not really able to farm like red blight maps. Don't know what's going on with my PC. So it's just a black oil, a teal oil, and then a brown oil. So it's nice and cheap. I think I had the oils drop really early on, and I've got enough for another couple of crafts if I do decide to upgrade the amulet. The shield is all I was looking for here was life and 30% avoid ailments. Everything else is a bonus. This was harvest crafted with either fire, cold, or lightning. You use these and they roll ailments all the time. I did have harvest spec'd in my tree earlier on just to try and build up some currencies to roll a decent shield. The rings are nothing special. This one's a fairly decent ring, but it doesn't have life on it. So it's damage, LE damage to attacks, chaos resistance base, just a bit of chaos res in the build with the mod that's fizzes extra chaos. Is pretty deadly because we have no fizz mitigation. If we had no chaos mitigation as well, we'd be in massive trouble from even small hits. And the other one, again, is just really damage, life, attributes, which is quite nice, and then lightning resistance. The belt is a Stygian Vise. I only have one, so I don't have the luxury of crafting another one. So I'll spam this with resistance essences, hit this, which is really, really good for me. I'd really like it to have LE damage with attacks as well, but I can't afford to recraft this because if it bricks and I lose my resistances, then I'm struggling. The gloves, as you saw in the video, I've literally just crafted these. These took forever. I crafted these with life essences once I'd hit the Eldritch mods. Ended up with accuracy, which is nice because it means I could drop a ring I was using earlier, which just had accuracy on and not a lot else. I was running out of essences, so I stuck with this. The boots are not particularly good at all. Again, I do have another base that I've just picked up, which is item level 85, I think, two-tone boots. So I could definitely recraft these if I carry on because these are pretty bad. But I got chaos resistance, movement speed, life, and then crafted lightning and chaos. The reason I'm trying to fit chaos everywhere is I was speccing this on the skill tree, but I had to drop them because I've gone into some cluster jewels. The flasks are diamond, jade, silver, and quicksilver. And then I've got chance to avoid being stunned, which I've got about 70 to 80% chance when mapping, so that's pretty nice. Attack speed, crit chance, and evasion. In terms of the stats, I still don't have any armor. I've not really found it an issue. Because you're freezing everything, I'm very rarely dying unless I'm taking on like bosses, guardians. I'm very likely to take a death there because I have to stand and basically try and tank or avoid as many attacks as possible because I have to stand there to do DPS. So with 33% through level 94, I could have actually leveled to 95, but I've been tackling loads of sorts of difficult content, so I have taken a few deaths. Again, yeah, that's my fizz mitigation. That's all it is. And my chaos resistance is just above 0 at 14%. I would like it to be higher, but I'll show you the tree just to show why I had to drop those nodes. I was going up here and taking cannot be hindered and cannot be maimed because they're both mods that can roll on maps. I've totally got rid of this bit of the tree, so I've gone down quite a lot of life. The reason you go up there is not just for these stats and the life. You get a lot of strength from going up here. You get 20 there and 10 there. But the lethal pride I got sorts out my strength. So actually I have now 22 fortification stacks, which is quite nice. A bit of regen. And then as we saw on the video, I have 2 double damage mods. I've gone up here because these are good nodes for melee anyway, but it's got crit chance and melee damage. So those nodes end up being about 6% more damage each node, and the travel nodes are not too bad either. So it's definitely worth doing. As I say, I've dropped a few other life nodes and other bits on the tree because I wanted to go into cluster jewels. So I had a large lightning damage cluster drop, which I've crafted, and then I had a medium non-damaging ailment crafted cluster as well. So this one, I was looking for either Sadist or Storm Rider, which we rolled on this jewel here. Storm Rider is much harder to roll. I ended up with Sadist and one other mod, and that's fine for kind of alt regaling. You can't expect to get 3. So disorientating display is just increased LE damage and chance to blind, which is actually quite nice. Sadist is lots of increased LE damage, so 60%, because I chill, ignite, and shock because I've got each damage type on my gear somewhere. So it's 60% increased LE damage, which is really nice. Fortunately, it's on a lightning base. I would like it to have been cold, but I haven't had one drop. And then going into the medium cluster, it's only got one notable, but it gives you power charges. So I think it's well worth the 4 points considering we get a dual socket out of it as well. So it's 10% chance to gain a power charge when you shock a chilled enemy. And we get increased cold and lightning damage against shocked and chilled enemies. I do quite a lot of lightning damage because I've got it on my claw. We do our cold damage as our main skill. And we're always shocking chilled enemies. So power charges are pretty much up all of the time. That's the reason I went with that. My duels are pretty terrible because it's just what I've picked up in SSF. So it's nothing I would look to copy. And then we did have one fight for survival duel drop, which is really nice because it gives us some extra damage. If you have certain decks in the region, and I think we do we definitely do because these are all decks. Then you've got decks down here. So you just need 40 dexterity and then you get 15% cold pen and we get a little bit of increased cold damage. So that's really nice. And obviously the lethal pride duel slotted there. That's kind of the tree I went with in the end. It did drop my life quite a bit, but I'm not dying any more or less than I was before because the way the build works is I know people say you have to run determination to be safe, but you really don't. On a raider, you get block from a shield anyway. So let's say minimum about 24%. I happen to roll block on my shield, so I've got 32%. When you're elusive, you've got, depending on what effect, you've got between 20 to 25% chance to not take any damage when hit. So when frenzy charges are up and you've got your flask up, chance to avoid being hit is about 85%. We have 53% reduced spell damage taken because we're 100% suppression and we have the extra 3% here. And this includes physical spells as well. So really the only thing we're going to die to is a huge fizz hit. And they're not as prevalent as people think they are. Most people die when it's like extra crit or it's fizzes extra or there's a lot of combination of mods. Even the bosses and conquerors and guardians aren't one-shotting me when they hit me unless they crit. So I'm not saying it's super safe. But in softcore as a league start build, this has got to 94 fairly comfortably, and it's with a lot of these horrible mods as well. Now, I've obviously died quite a lot because I've had to push content on gear that's probably not good enough for this content. So we're looking at 51 deaths, but I think for what is now 6 days played, I think that's pretty good in a fairly dangerous event for a character that basically has 0 fizz mitigation whatsoever. And that's kind of how I went with the character, and it's how I normally always level a raider. Last league was the only exception where I went determination instead, and I don't think it was as good because it feels bad not running grace when you're a raider because we get so much evasion from our ascendancy, from frenzy charges, and from the tree that not running grace is a bit of a waste because you get a massive boost. And if you run grace and determination, your damage probably isn't there at league start to get through sort of guardians and the first 2 pinnacle bosses. I have had Divine Vessels drop, but I've been lazy and not done my Pantheons, but I'm mapping with Lunaris. The only one I've done is Burning Ground because Harbingers drop it all the time, and I farm Exile maps, and they drop Burning Ground all the time. So it's a no-brainer to not run this, really. So as I said, I don't know if I'm going to take this character any further. I am going to play it, but I do think I need some big drops to be able to even make any more progress. So all I'm going to do is farm to try and get those, and if I don't get them, I'm not going to bring a video out. If I do end up dropping either a Yoke of Suffering or I get a Fractured Claw drop, which allows me to craft a much better claw, I may try and push some more content and bring a video out. But I know with the character as it is with the mods, he's probably not going to be able to boss without some upgrades. And it's, you know, you would have to farm for those and who knows how long or if they will ever drop. But overall, I think for SSF, I'm really, really happy with where I've got with the character. I've kind of persevered through some difficult spots and got it to a place where it maps really, really well and really, really fun. So I will carry on playing. There's no point not. I'm enjoying it. But whether there'll be another video is another matter because I don't plan to try and push any more levels. And I don't really plan on bossing until I get some better gear because I will just brick the boss fights. There's no point. It's no fun when you go into an fight and you know pretty much you're not going to complete it. So let's have a look at the Atlas tree because people were asking for that last time. It's still a bit all over the place because I need to respec some more points. I spec'd out of most of Breach in the end out of these ones. So I've just kept this one because I got a chance to drop a Breach Stone and Flash Breach here because I think you might as well keep them because you get Breach in the map. We've gone up and got strong boxes can be duplicated in terms of the maps and then some more cartographer nodes here just to help with map sustain. We've got essences, which I've had from day one. I think they're really, really good for SSF. And I've actually gone shrines as well. So I've gone here and here to get shrines just to help when mapping. I've only just put them in node probably for the last like 10 or 12 maps. We're still running Exarch and Light of Dawn and Eldritch Gaze. I was in Legion because I had some Legion Scarabs to use up, wanted a Lethal Pride, so I took all the Legion nodes. But I'm going to spec out of them now, and then I decide what I want to spec into. I was Rogue Exiles, but they're pretty difficult in T16 maps. They're really deadly. They're really, really tanky because you give them like another 100% life. If you then get the mod where they take less damage, I'm in a bit of trouble. Even with probably all my stuff up and an enemy frozen, I'm at 4 to 5 million burst DPS, and they take some killing. Respecting to a Harbinger node here, just to increase the cooldown recovery and get some currency that drops in whole currencies rather than shards. It's more because I hate hanging around for them to spawn, and I find I end up either dying or using all my mana because they haven't spawned yet. So once I've respec'd out of Legion nodes, I've got a few more points to spend. No idea where they're going to go yet. I'm just going to put stuff in that's going to help me when I'm farming. In terms of Atlas completion, I've not given up on it, but I'm not bothered about it. It doesn't bring me anything because I don't even know where I want to spec into. So if at some point I want to just clear all the Atlas, I will do. But at this point, I'm really not that fussed about it. I've got the maps I want to do completed, corrupted, so I can drop my favorite map, and that's really about it. I also don't really want to drop these maps because they're rubbish. So I'm just going to leave them off of the Atlas for now. And then it gives me more chance of getting like Dunes, which are favorited. So that's really it for this video. I just wanted to sum up how the day went, how my experience is, and why I might not continue any further. But overall, as I said in lots of videos, I've really enjoyed the event. It just got a bit ruined by the extra mods. I am looking to do a new series, which is probably leveling this sort of character up in a trade environment, but maybe seeing what we can do with some 1C uniques that are 1C on day one. Because the difficulty with attack builds a lot of the time is it can cost you quite a bit of money to get going even into mid-tier yellow maps unless you want to stick with Spectral Helix, which feels ass for mapping. I've got a couple of POBs in mind for fairly squishy League Start raiders, but it's going to get the job done, and in softcore League Start trade, that's all that really matters. So I might be putting these League Start builds through their paces in the next couple of weeks, just as an option at League Start. If they end up getting nerfed, so be it. I'm quite enjoying it anyway. But if they don't, then at least I've got some options for myself and some options I can share with other people. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.